Hey everyone, I'm Sunak Agarkar and welcome to Agarkar Media Academy. This is the 37th video in Blender tutorial series for beginners. And yes, this is my fifth consecutive video today. Of course, you'll not be seeing all those videos in just one day, you'll be seeing it at consecutive days. But I'm recording all the videos at one go because I thought, I just should cover all the physics simulations at one stage and it would be really easy for me to at least record the videos. What we are going to look at in this video is this rigid body simulations as I've promised. Let's start. Zoop. Yay! And that's rigid body simulations. So what we have seen till now inside Blender animation is that we can have shape keys and keyframes and whatnot to animate the shapes and animate the positions of every mesh or object, right? But there are cases when we want some simulation to take the control. So for instance, when two objects are colliding to each other, then we don't want to by ourselves think or maybe calculate how the objects would collide with each other and how they would react. We simply want that the collision should take place and everything should be calculated by itself, and that's where physics simulation, rigid body simulations comes handy inside of Blender, and that's really cool. So these are all the blocks which are not being animated by me one by one, they are all being automatically what animated by using the rigid body simulations, and that is exactly what we are going to learn in this video. Let's just look at that one more time so that we get to know what actually we are just trying to get. Okay, so you can see here, as soon as the ball goes through the wall, the wall breaks. Of course the wall is breaking even before the ball, even before the ball goes through it. But yeah, that's the point, the objects are interacting with each other and just creating a realistic looking simulation. Okay, so that is exactly what we are trying to get. Okay, so let's go to new file. I don't want to save it. First of all, as always, delete the default cube. Let's add a plane, shift A plane. This will be our ground. Let's keep it till here, let's say, maybe bigger, I don't know. And let's give it a rigid body simulation. Okay, very simple, rigid body simulation. If we don't give it a rigid body simulation, then it won't be a part of rigid body animations, and thus it will not work. So till now we had seen collision, we just need to turn on the collision when we are using cloth simulation. But here, because we want rigid body animations, we don't want collisions here, we want the rigid body itself. Okay, so here inside of rigid body, this is our rigid body, you just need to click it, it's turned on. Play it, and it falls, but it is a ground, it should not fall. What should we do? Should we keep, and why is it happening? Is it right? Yes, it is right. Rigid body should fall under the force of gravity, unless it has something to hold it right here at the bottom, right? Or it is something is holding it up. But if something, even if we put a, let's say, a plane down here, then it would also fall because it should also be a part of rigid body system, right? So for that matter, what we want is a rigid body which does not actively takes part in the animation. It is a rigid body, but it is not actively taking part in the animation. Meaning, simply, type should be passive. That's it. Done. Woohoo! Yeah, it's really that simple. Just make it passive, and that is it. It won't take part in the rigid body animations, but it will be a rigid body. Okay, now let's make cubes. Shift A to add a cube and just grab it on the ground. I'm just going to scale it by 0.1. I'm just speeding it up, you have seen these things. I'm just going to use an array modifier. Just one thing that we need to understand is that there should always be some space between the cubes, otherwise they will not work as the way we want them to work. Okay, so 1.02 I found that works the best. Let's have 20 of them. Let's add one more array, and this time in the z direction because I want it upwards. So 1.02. If there is no space between them, we cannot separate them, and if the space is small, then the collisions will just explode. It would not collide, they would explode. I've tried it. You can try it with a lesser spacing here and you will see what happens. Okay, so 20. Here we have the wall of cubes, as I call it, wall of cubes. Let's just give it some shadow and cavity. Just the looks of it increases. You can better see all the cubes, so only for that matter I've just turned it on. Okay, so in the physics panel we want it to be a rigid body, and this time we want it to be active. Okay, we want shape to be of mesh type. We don't want it to be animated. We are not going to animate it, so animated will be off. Okay, dynamic, of course we want them to be dynamic. And inside of surface response we want to increase the friction. Okay, because if the friction is less, you have seen the cubes were just sliding on the ground. We don't want that. We just increase the friction for that matter. Okay, cool. And now just go to here and just apply the array. That is it. Now we have just one object here. You can see just one cube. We are just going to separate each of them by parts. Okay, so we are in the edit mode. Tap to edit mode, or from here you can go to edit mode. P to separate, and separate by loose parts, because there are loose parts. We have already seen we gave 0.02 meters of thickness or distance offset when we are applying an array modifier, right? So it has already created some distancing between the cubes. So by making it separate by loose parts, you can see all of these cubes are now separate. Okay, go to the object mode. Here you can see one problem, that each cube is having its origin point here, which we don't want. So I've already shown you in one of the videos in the Blender tutorial series how to set the origin point to its geometry. Object, set origin, origin to geometry, and now every object has its own origin at its own center. Okay, that is exactly what we want. Otherwise the animations will work, but it won't be realistic. Okay, now we want a sphere, so shift A to add a sphere, and we are going to use icosphere. No big reason why to use icosphere. You could have gone for a UV sphere as well, but makes no difference at all. Okay, and we are just going to move it around here, grab around here. Okay, I to insert a keyframe right here. We have seen this animations inserting keyframes, and at 50, let's say, I'm just going to make it till here and insert keyframe here as well. So basically in the 50 frames the ball will move from one place to another. Okay, now also we want it to be a rigid body. Go to the physics properties, rigid body, and this time the mass, we want mass to be higher. So let's say 30 kgs. Okay, cool. Why it's not working? 30 kgs, and we want it to be animated because we are animating by ourselves. So if we are using the keyframes by ourselves, then we need to just animate it, and that is it. I think it would work. Let's play it. Oh, it exploded. It exploded. The distance between the cubes was not great, and that's why it exploded. But yeah, you got the point. You saw how it works, and woo, woo. Yeah, at least they're interacting with each other. So this is exactly what I wanted to tell you, that if the distance between them is too small, they would just collide with each other and just explode for some weird reason. I don't know why they should not explode, but yeah, got the point. And this is how it works and it looks. So just simple thing that we have missed out was that friction should be less, and the distance between the objects should be higher. Otherwise, this is how the rigid body simulations work. So I hope you learned something new from this video. There are other things as well which I want to show you in the rigid body animations, and that we are going to cover in the next tutorial. So again, this tutorial is divided into two parts. The first one was this one. In the next part we are just going to make a hanging ball just colliding with the boxes. Okay, so it the idea is taken directly from YouTube channel Blender Guru, and Dave Fries has given this awesome animation for rigid body simulations, and that exact simulation that we are going to cover in the next tutorial. So if you have watched that video of Blender Guru, which is Enterprise, then you don't need to watch that video again. But just as a refresher, if you want, you can just watch along with me, and just do it along with me, and just have fun with rigid body simulations instead of Blender. So that is it for this video. I hope you learned a lot from this video. See you in the next tutorial. Till then, keep smiling and keep learning.